You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. For previous episodes, visit thinkingcountry.com or find the podcast on iTunes or SoundCloud by searching for Meet the Farmers. Hello and welcome to the show. This is episode 47 of Meet the Farmers. I'm in sunny Suffolk today at Kenton Hall Estate with Emily McVeigh. Kenton Hall is a diverse rural family business which incorporates four main enterprises: an arable farm, a herd of longhorn cattle with a focus from production from field to fork, a wedding venue and glamping site, and a cookery school. McVeighs first came to Suffolk in 1986 when Emily's father David bought the estate, and it has been transformed since then. The family previously farmed in Northern Ireland and the Isle of Man. Let's start with that, actually, because that's really So tell me a bit about the roots. When did the family come over from then?
So they moved here about, I think it's coming up to 40 years ago, and farming in Northern Ireland. So we've been farming as a family, the McVeighs, my father's side, since 1640 in Northern Ireland. So that makes my brother and sister, who are primarily farming, the 12th or 13th generation. Wow. So yes, so farming and livestock and arable over in Northern Ireland, and then they just had a small farm over there, so moved to the Isle of Man and bought a farm there, and that's where my parents met. So my mum's from Derbyshire, she moved over to the Isle of Man with her parents. My grandfather was an architect, and then they met there and they had a farm there for a little while. I think they found it quite extreme weather, very windy, rain, and didn't like it so much, and so moved to East Anglia to come farming over here.
Your dad still has the accent. You don't.
Absolutely, yeah. No, not at all. And everybody, I think, still after 35 years, he's still a foreigner in Suffolk. So yeah, still strong accent, Northern Irish.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. Anyway, it's we've got a huge amount to talk about.
Yes.
It was really interesting putting questions together for this, and I want to take those four areas of your business that I mentioned at the beginning in turn.
Great.
But first, can you tell me a brief sort of background to the business and who does what? Because this is a family business through and through.
Yes, absolutely. So it sort of triggered about 8 years ago. I was 21 and moved back to the farm. I didn't go to university, which is something that has sort of benefited and sort of held me back in some ways, but okay. I was raring to go at 21, and we didn't have anything here apart from the arable farm, no livestock. Dad had been building it up and developing it over the sort of 25-30 years that he was here, so he really renovated loads of buildings, built lots, put in fantastic infrastructure, with the definitely future-proofing and thinking about the future. And they had, my parents had got planning permission to put a marquee in the gardens for a wedding venue, which was sort of a pipeline thing that they hadn't really thought too much about it, but they just thought if they got the planning permission, if any of us wanted to do that in the future, something we could potentially do. And I was looking for something to do as a sort of career, and started, the wedding venue came first, really.
Right.
And then we, over here in the glamping site, which is where we are now, actually where the kitchen is, we had a yurt that my dad built, and we used to come over here on safari and have picnics and things over here as children, and that kind of sparked, and glamping started to kind of take hold a bit, although we were probably one of the first glamping sites to open in Suffolk, and since then I know it has got incredibly popular, which is something that towards other farm diversifications I can talk for ages about, but so that kind of thought got me thinking about glamping. And also we found that lots of couples wanted overnight accommodation, and that's grown from a yurt and a shepherd's hut to being able to sleep 4 to being able to sleep 20 over here now. And so that's kind of it, everything's grown in turn, but I primarily manage the weddings and the glamping, which kind of go hand in hand, and then we do lots of hen parties and the cookery school side of things as well. And then Lucy, my sister, manages the longhorn cattle herd and the beef production and burgers, that kind of thing. And then we're having quite an interesting time because my brother's now back.
Okay.
He's graduated and had a year away, and he's sort of finding his feet, so he's sort of looking to take over the farm at some point, not too soon, but he's working with my dad more, so the farming arable side is definitely dad and brother, with Lucy a little bit in between, and then but we all very much help with everything. So if Lucy's got a burger event, we'll be there flipping burgers and helping, and similarly if I'm got a wedding, Lucy or Tom will be car parking and helping on the bar, and it's very much everyone in together for every part.
I always Google guests before I come and see you, and one of the first things that comes up for you is your talk at the Norfolk Farming Conference last year.
Yes.
And in that talk, you and Lucy talk about succession planning a lot, which links to coming back and deciding how those changes are going to take place. Generally, succession is something that farming families aren't great at. Why and how has it been effective for you?
I think for us it's been I think we say this a lot, but communication has just been there from the start, and the way we've structured things. So even though on the surface it does appear like a family business, it is a family business, but we all have our own identities, which I think works really well. I have a limited company, which is my own business, and apart from lots of advice and help and practical help and support, I run. So it's very much I'm given the reins and I have the decisions, decision making. I can do all that, and the same for Lucy and the farm. There's sort of not too much crossover, which I think is good for future proofing, because it means that you don't have too many opinions and too many people getting involved in a small business. And it also means that, for example, the glamping site is owned by my limited company, and it means that if I were to ever want to move it, or if anyone else wants to take it on, it sort of has its own identity and it doesn't get muddied in the water of what it is or how much it makes. So I think it's really important to have those clear-cut lines between each enterprise.
But at the same time, you're working under a single brand.
Absolutely, and we all support each other.
And most importantly, as siblings, you still get on.
We still get on, exactly, yeah. We do have our moments, definitely, and I think that in a way being in charge of different things, like for example Lucy is definitely in charge of the burgers, and if you're working on the burger stand, you answer to Lucy. But if you're
imagine that.
Exactly. But if you're working at a wedding, you answer to me. So I think that works well, and everyone can slot in, and different skills as well, because Lucy's very practical. I don't really have those kind of practical skills. I'm better online, social media, that kind of thing. So across the different enterprises as well, pulling in our the skills that we're good at individually to help the greater.
Take me back to when your parents first moved here in the 80s.
Yes.
What did the farm itself look like then, and what are the big investments that have taken place?
Yeah, so
away from the glamping and
sure.
On your side.
Yeah, so it still is 460 acre farm, so very small. I mean, we call it an estate. We have 3 dwelling properties here, and we actually got estate from when we're looking at websites. Kenton Hall is actually taken, and it's down in Harrow. There's a Kenton Hall, so we couldn't have kentonhall.co.uk, so we kind of developed this estate. But I think actually it works really well, because we do have lots of things happening, so it kind of comes under the estate brand. But when they bought Kenton Hall, it was a very rundown farm with a very rundown farmyard. My father relocated the main farmyard to the Hall end here, and because we've got a secondary farmyard up near Blood Hall, which is my grandmother's house, and there's a further Blood Hall cottage. So he moved the farmyard and built 3 new grain stores. So really big investment in the grain stores. And concrete roading, and putting in those kind of really good foundations. And then within the hall itself, I love the story that my mum, when she moved in, and my parents in the hall, there was the sitting room, the kitchen, and 1 bedroom upstairs that was inhabitable. And my mum would put on hat, gloves, scarf, coat to walk to the kitchen, which had the Arga in it, to make a cup of tea. So they've done a lot of development in the house, which has really brought it up to be a family home that we all have lived in and love. And then the gardens as well. So the garden in front of the hall was a field, and that's where the marquee is now. So kind of putting those kind of developments in, and a lot of fencing, and this woodland that we are in now, my dad planted. So yes, it's not sort of a really established woodland, but it's 30 years old and it's really thriving. So lots of improvements.
Yeah, and that was obviously before all of you lot came along.
Exactly.
So did he have a sort of vision of where... Is that vision changed? Or did he have a grand vision of how...
I mean, we never said... It was never like a plan that I was going to move back to the farm and start this business. Yeah. But actually from then, and I think I said to you a little bit earlier before we started the podcast, is that when we had Radio 4 come to speak to us, that was kind of... and we did the On Your Farm episode with Anna Hills, sort of the first time we'd actually realised that for us kind of food linked everything, the food hub, the cattle, and even though we're doing weddings and hen parties and everything else, the kind of going right back to the basics, which is what we grow here, you know, on the arable farm, which is crops, cereal crops. Food ultimately is kind of linked every part of what we've done, even though we haven't really planned it that way. So, you know, it's been quite organic. It was never a kind of plan to have everybody working on the farm in the businesses and here all the time. But I think it's kind of, we've taken every opportunity and it's grown organically really nicely.
So we briefly covered your arable enterprise,
yes.
But I want to talk about your longhorns. And I was saying, longhorns seem to be following me about at the moment because I visited Silas and English Farm a couple of episodes ago. So when did you start with beef cattle here?
Beef cattle, probably maybe 7 years ago actually we got the herd. So Dad actually grew up with longhorn cattle, even though we didn't really know this because he had dehorned cattle on the farm in Ireland. Yeah. And he wanted some cattle really just for kind of grazing in the front fields. They thought it would look nice. So him and Tom went off to Worcester Market and bought 5 longhorns, and we've grown up the herd ourselves since then, and we've built the roundhouse, which I'll show you soon, and that's got it's fantastic because it's got an amazing airflow, and they're kind of, the cattle are kept in kind of pie-like segments, so they're very easily handled within the roundhouse. It's also got a viewing platform, which is fantastic for education, so we take a lot of school groups up there. So yeah, the cattle are just lovely, and I think that it's just been something that we started off just selling the meat to family and friends. Everyone thought it was brilliant, and then we just randomly decided to phone up Snake Maltings and say, can we have a stall at your farmers market? And they said yes, and we had no idea what we're doing, and we went over there, and then that started to that's when we sort of started selling meat.
Yeah, because you're very fortunate here to have an abattoir relatively locally and also an on-site butchery.
Absolutely, yes.
Tell me about that.
So the butchery actually happened, yes, I think about 5 years ago, I think 2013, 2014, and a local butcher in Debenham, he was leaving his employment of the kind of butcher's shop, and he was looking for somewhere for a small cutting room, and we wanted someone that would cut up our longhorns for us, and so that's Palfrey and Hall. They now have a butcher shop in the village of their own, but what works really well is they cut up for smallholders. So if you have a couple of sheep or some pigs, they'll cut it up for you. And then they also supply delis and farm shops. So it kind of worked with 2 young men wanting to start a small butchery business, us having space in the food hub, which was a cow byre that we converted, which is where the cookery school is, and we thought, yeah, this works really well. So it was one of these conversations that a friend of ours was having at the Suffolk show. Met Sean, he said he was looking for somewhere. He said his friend David was looking for somewhere, looking for some butchers, and it just kind of happened.
One of those
Suffolk, exactly, one of those Suffolk stories of how it started. So yes, we're very lucky to have the butchery up there, and Lucy and I spent a lot of time in the butchery. We don't as much now because it's very cold. I couldn't be a butcher. Learning about the animal and how it's cut up, and the cuts, and really that was really invaluable because we really had no idea about beef really before
Best
then.
way to learn.
Absolutely, yeah, actually doing it.
And then there's Burger Van.
Yes.
So you're selling your prime cuts, and then you've got your burger van as well.
Yes, so we sell burgers at events. We don't do too many because I was saying to you a bit earlier that we really look for kind of large scale events in Suffolk. And so we're at Bury Food and Drink Festival coming up, and we usually at Oldborough Food and Drink Festival, which are a couple of really good ones for us. And then we do some smaller kind of private events and other festivals in between. So yeah, that works really well because it's a kind of complete field to fork. So we have the meat that we can obviously make into the burgers, and then we sell them to the customer.
Based on that, can you tell me about your annual field to fork lunch? Because
Yes.
I've seen some of the photos and it looks amazing.
It does look amazing. We actually haven't done it for a couple of years, but we're going to bring it back next year.
Oh, brilliant.
Because we have all these great ideas and we do things, and we've now decided that we can't do everything all the time. So we're going to start to do things. Our food fair, which we again haven't done this year, but we're going to do that biannually, and we're going to work things up. Yes, it's fantastic. So it's a long table, so long trestle tables, all put together with crisp white tablecloths and linen tablecloths, and it's by the field where the cows are in the field. So you dine with the cattle behind you, and we serve roast beef on a Sunday. And so you can eat the beef, you can see the cattle, and then we really, engage everyone and tell them the story of the field to fork, how it got onto their plate. And I know at the moment with veganism and lots of kind of people very sceptical about meat production, it may seem like a strange concept, but it works really well because actually I think lots of people are realising that they'd rather know exactly what they're eating and where it came from and what kind of life it had, and the welfare standards, and meet the people producing it.
There's so much going on. So tell me about the cookery school.
Cookery school, yes. So that's really grown, probably one of the quickest kind of growth over the past sort of 4 or 5 years. We started doing not very many courses and sort of attracting 4 or 5 people in each course and just kind of getting a name for it ourselves, whereas now we're kind of booked up almost 6 months in advance, and we do a whole range of courses. We're a Weber Grill Academy, so we run Weber barbecue courses for them. So we're trained by them, and we impart our Weber knowledge from the Weber family. It's a whole beast of its own, but it's great if you want to come and learn how to barbecue and something that's not sausages and burgers. If you want something, to learn to really.
Signing up now. I've just bought a new barbecue.
Yes.
I had it my first time on Tuesday. It was just going to be me and my girlfriend, and we're going to have a nice quiet evening, and then it ended up being about 80 people. And I ended up being that person who it ended up going in the oven and then finished on the barbecue. So I need to hold up my hands there.
Yes, shame on you, but it is a skill, and I think that lots of people lack.
Is.
Yes, they lack confidence, and so they're really great courses to come along and really learn, how to control the temperature on your barbecue, how to cook different types of meat and temperatures and that kind of thing. So it has been really popular, and it continues to be. So that's Weber Grill Academy, and then we run a range of courses from Indian to game to veg to patisserie. So we do full and half day courses, and they just seem to be going really well. I run it, and then I get in lots of different chefs. So it's kind of managed by me, but different chefs for different courses. So fantastic Thai chef from Bury St Edmunds, and she comes and does Thai and dim sum and that kind of thing. And then I have another chef who works in the school during the week, and then she comes to us my weekend courses for kind of knife skills and beginners cookery, and she's brilliant. So
I'm going to ask one of those questions now that regularly comes up on this podcast, simply because of the nature of all of who you are. How do you manage your time? Because you have a lot of hats here. And I was thinking specifically, actually, with the weddings. Do you personally coordinate those?
Yes.
Wow.
I know. Well, it does sound like absolutely bonkers, but one thing that's quite good about what we do here is seasonal. So the weddings and the glamping, I have to say, is seasonal. So it's May to September. Yeah. Couldn't do it all year. So May to September is when it's really busy with weddings and glamping, hen parties, and then we do run the Weber Grill Academy is really busy during the summer. But then we sort of at the cookery school have 2 terms when it's kind of September to December, and then January to May, June. So that's kind of full on at the cookery school. So I do have a bit of differentiation. However, obviously with weddings, people are booking a year and a half ahead. So there's lots of kind of overlap with wedding viewings and getting bookings for the future. I think that actually having the weddings is quite interesting because it means I do have to think a year to 2 years ahead, and I've kind of applied that to the cookery school as well. So already, our Christmas courses are online. We're planned January to May 2020. We're even looking to December 2020, which sounds mad for Christmas, but I think it's all about just really planning really far ahead, and then I have set days where I'm like on the farm, mainly Tuesdays and Thursdays, when I'm practically running around doing things, like today, sorting things out on the marquee, and setting up for the next wedding, and then with my small team as well, and then I have sort of 2 or 3 days a week in the office when I'm answering emails and really in accounting and all kind of other hats on. So I think it's I do need a differentiation between being in the office and being on the farm. It's very hard to be on the farm and obviously answering emails. It's just a constant balancing act. I don't think I've really got it right, but I have learned probably the first 2 or 3 years when you start something, I just never saw my friends, or I was just tunnel vision, working all the time, and I have learned to kind of delegate, and I do lucky to have a really, really good team of part-time people working for me. Susie up at the cookery school, Janet and Ivan, who my kind of housekeeping team, and then other people that I draft in for weddings. And so
I noticed in your Norfolk Farming Conference talk, in your sort of markers of success, one of those was improved work-life balance.
Yes, absolutely.
How's that going?
It is actually going okay at the moment. Yeah, I've managed to keep it. I think that because you learn what to say no to, and when I started, the first couple of years exactly, I would just say yes to everything and not really manage my time. Is that a practical time to have that? And also I think you learn that meetings are great, but then they lead to a lot of work. So, just planning when, I think I've never really had like a proper career in an office. So I've just totally kind of jumped into this and run it the way I want to run it. And also I think having staff, I pay them really well, and we have barbecues, and I think it's really important to really enthuse and treat your staff really well, because they allow you to run your business basically. And also it's a real team effort, so I do everything they do. I wouldn't ask them to do anything that I wouldn't, even the bad jobs, cleaning all the barbecues, we're in it together. And I think that helps.
If you were speaking to yourself from a few years back, knowing what you now know, what advice would you give yourself?
To just relax more, because I would like before a wedding, I would not sleep and have these terrible dreams that somebody has gone and taken down the marquee in the night or something ridiculous, and then they wouldn't have a venue for people to come to. And I think it's just, you do worry about things a lot, but I think that actually I've learned to not worry so much and just let things happen and trust in your own capabilities, because you are probably more capable than you think.
What would you say your biggest challenges are across all areas of the business, I suppose, those 4 wings? What are those big challenges moving forward?
Moving forward, I mean, I think with the cookery school, courses are selling really well and people are really happy and want to come on those, but I am cautious that the dreaded B word, but with Brexit happening and maybe people having a tighter purse and thinking a little bit more, it's a kind of one of the first things that's going to go, because it's a luxury experience. So I'm kind of cautious of that, and really looking at courses that we can offer that are affordable and fun, and things, content that people want to do. And then I think with the glamping, I've definitely seen, unfortunately, this year, I said earlier that we were probably one of the first glamping sites to open. I have seen a bit of a dip in bookings this summer. I think it is because of the sheer amount of glamping sites that popped up. And from a kind of talking directly to farmers, it really bugs me. And I did say this at the CLA conference this year, that people are sold glamping as this perfect diversification project that you'll make, £150 a night, and it will have, 80% occupancy, and it's, the ticket to great income from your little bit of patch of land in your back, on the farm somewhere, which can be true. But I think that because so many farmers have done it, which is great to an extent, the market is becoming a bit saturated, and I think that because the ways that people are booking online, they're just scrolling through pages and pages of glamping sites, and you come here and you see this lovely woodland, and the yurt is completely separate and secluded from the shepherd's hut, and there's a lovely kitchen and a big cedarwood table, and it's very private and quiet and lovely, but you're not necessarily going to get that online, even if I put up videos and as much content as I can. Whereas other sites, have the yurts packed in next to each other, and it's not quite the holiday that people are expecting sometimes. So that's a bit of a challenge of how to reinvent ourselves. I mean, the hen parties are going really well, and I think for group bookings, that's what we're going to focus on. But it is a challenge to get those kind of midweek bookings. That sounds negative. It's not negative, but that's
realistic.
That's realistic, yeah. And I think that lots of farmers should really think about making that investment, because it's still a big investment when you're got to get water and power to a remote part of your farm.
Interesting.
Yes.
And your brother and your sister's interests, what are they saying to you in terms of how they think?
Yes, the farming.
I
mean, I think there's a lot of challenges for all farmers regarding soil health and farming in a more responsible way. I mean, we obviously none of us know what's going to happen in October, but I think we all just need to come together as a farming community. I really feel like that. I heard Minette Batters speak from the NFU, and I think it's brilliant that she's first female president, but I really think it's time that the farming community really came together. Not very good at that in the past, I think it's seen as a bit of competition between farming and neighbours, but I think we really need to all come together and push out a really good farming message and inform people.
So talking of the farming community, you have hats that go wider than Suffolk.
Yes.
And specifically being chair of Under 30s Farmers Club. We haven't covered the Farmers Club at all on the podcast at all, so please, voice over to you now. What is the Farmers Club?
The Farmers Club is in London, and it's a private members club on Whitehall, which sounds incredibly posh, but really we feel like it's a real home from home. It's got a very farming vibe, and one thing that we're actually saying as a family, we love going there, but the room rates are fantastic. It's a great location to have, and traditionally it was used by farmers and farming community to have a base in London if they're going for meetings or advising DEFRA or that kind of thing. But what we find is that it's the most friendly place to go. You sit in the bar or the lounge, and if you're on your own, or even if you're with a group, the first question people will ask you is, where are you from? And then that will spark conversations, and it's just the most friendly place. I have been down a lot on my own for different meetings, functions, and I always have a lovely time. I always meet new people, and I think that from an under 30s point of view, it's a really great space, lots of opportunities. We run about 6 events at the club during the year, and we run 2 farm walks that are in the country, and our events attract between 60 and 80 people. We have a guest speaker who's usually somebody, through networking, through somebody on the committee that knows somebody. And so we get some really great speakers. We had the agricultural manager for McDonald's. During my tenure, we also had Emily Norton, who is now at Savills, but a farmer from Norfolk. So it's not only an opportunity to get some really high-class speakers to speak to us and then ask really honest questions and get really honest answers, but it's a chance to meet other people who are farming all over the UK. I developed really good friendships with 3 sisters who run an ice cream business in Cheshire. Snug Breeze, little plug for them, and they are fantastic, and they took over from their parents, and they just create amazing ice cream. And it's fantastic for me to meet other people who are quite innovative and doing different things on their family farm and who would like to come to London, even if you can make 1 or 2 events a year, meet people, especially for me, I started going to a lot of events because I sort of lacked more of a social life in Suffolk of meeting really like-minded people. So I think it's a really, really good, it's just a fantastic place, and I'd recommend, if anybody is interested in it more, come to an under 30s event, find out what it's all about, meet people. And we do still have a 60-40 ratio of farmers to ancillary, so land agents or people that work in the countryside. So it's still farming, predominantly, which is great.
Is there a website?
There is. There's a website. It's thefarmersclub.com.
We're going to try the 1 minute soapbox. That's okay.
Okay. Yes.
So I remembered to actually prep someone. Normally I spring this on guests and they're like, oh, what am I going to do? But so the 1 minute soapbox. Everybody should be used to this by now. It gives guests 1 minute to talk about a subject of their choice. This could be anything at all, farming or non-farming. Have you got an idea of what you want to talk about?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
But then I don't know if I've talked about it a lot of stuff already.
That's okay.
Okay.
It'll all be edited anyway.
Okay, good.
And even if you do it again, that's absolutely fine as well.
Okay.
What are you going to talk about?
I wasn't talking about women in farming.
Cool.
And, kind of females, I think. But I might go off topic a bit.
That's fine.
Okay.
Women in ag, 1 minute. Emily McVeigh, starting now.
Okay, so I think that women in agriculture, it's really important that more young women are encouraged to not only work in agriculture and actual farming, but also to work in rural businesses and to be encouraged to, work and live in the countryside and learn that there is a space for them. And I think it's really important within farming businesses to not have the traditional housewife sitting at the kitchen table doing the accounts role, but to have someone that's really involved in the day-to-day decision making, out there on the farm, learning. And I think that my sister's a prime example that it's not a fairer sex anymore. They really can step up and be as physically strong and able as most men out there. So I think it's just my little message is that young women especially should be encouraged to come into agriculture, into the sector.
Brilliant. That was very good.
Oh my God. Okay.
Emily McVeigh, who spoke to me at the Kenton Hall Estate back in August. To find out more about Kenton Hall, you can visit their website, which is kentonhallestate.co.uk. I want to thank the Chadacre Agricultural Trust for supporting this episode, Tom Bland for his help with production, and of course the McVeigh family. Next time, I'll be heading to Gloucestershire and I'll be speaking to Andy Dibben and Kate Yells at Abbey Home Farm near Cirencester. That'll be the first stop in my latest podcast road trip. I travelled around the Cotswolds, Worcestershire, Herefordshire and North Wales, meeting farmers and talking about farming issues. So I hope you can join me then. Please share this episode with someone and subscribe to the podcast in the place where you normally listen. And I'll look forward to you joining me next time.